Chosen one, stop for just a moment and breathe. Let your shoulders drop from where they have been holding so much for so long. I know you have reached a place where you feel you have done everything you know how to do. You have prayed the prayers. You have made the changes. You have kept showing up even when nothing seemed to move. And somewhere in the quiet you have asked me, is there something else you want from me, Lord? Is there one more thing I am supposed to be doing? My beloved, I have heard that question, and tonight I want to answer it with tenderness. There is a difference between your part and my part, and it is time you learned where the one ends and the other begins, because you have been trying to carry a weight that was never yours to lift. Stay with me through these words, my child, all the way to the end, because what I want to give you tonight is rest. Not the rest of giving up, but the deep rest of a soul that finally understands the boundary between obedience and outcome. You have been exhausting yourself trying to produce what only I can produce, and I want to say to you the thing your tired heart has been longing to hear. You did your part, my beloved. Now watch me do mine. I know how you got so tired, my child. Somewhere along the way, you came to believe that if the answer had not come, it must be because you had not done enough. So you added more effort, more worry, more trying, more carrying. You turned your walk with me into an endless list of things you must accomplish to keep the blessing coming. And you have been quietly terrified that if you ever stopped striving, everything would fall apart. My beloved, that fear has been lying to you. You were never holding your life together by the strength of your own hands. I have been holding it all along, and the exhaustion you feel is not the weight of your calling. It is the weight of a responsibility I never gave you. The responsibility of being your own savior, your own provider, your own miracle worker. Tonight, I want to lift that weight off of you and place it back where it belongs, on my shoulders, which never grow tired and never grow weak. Hear me clearly, my child, because this is not about doing the least you can get away with, and it is not about earning my favor through your striving. It's about understanding the relationship between your obedience and my power. Let me show you how I have always worked. At a wedding in a small town called Cana, it is written in John 2, Jesus saith unto them, fill the water pots with water, and they filled them up to the brim. Now notice carefully, my beloved, what the servants were asked to do. They were not asked to create wine. They were not asked to understand how a miracle could possibly happen. They were simply asked to fill the jars with water. That was their whole assignment, nothing more and nothing less. And then, when the master of the feast tasted the water that was made wine, the miracle had already happened quietly without anyone straining to make it so. The servants carried the water. Only I could turn it into wine, my child. Do you see it? So many of my children become discouraged because they confuse their obedience with the outcome. They think that if the result has not appeared yet, then their obedience must have been meaningless. But I never ask you to produce what only I can produce. I ask you to faithfully do the small thing I have placed in your hands, and then to trust me with everything you cannot control. The servants filled the jars. That was doing their part. And doing your part, my beloved, is not always about doing more. Sometimes it is simply about doing exactly what I asked, no more and no less, with a faithful heart. If something in you is beginning to loosen as you hear that the weight of the miracle was never on your shoulders, my child, I want you to mark it. Go down to the comments and type these words, I have done my part, and now I will trust God to do His. Say it not as a performance for anyone else, but as the first quiet breath of a soul beginning to lay its burden down. Let me take you to another moment, my beloved, one that happened by a lake in the early morning after a long and fruitless night. There were fishermen who had worked all through the darkness and caught nothing, and their nets were empty and their bodies were tired. And it is written that when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Launch out into the deep, and let down your nets for a catch." My child, listen to how Simon answered, "Master, we have toiled all the night and have taken nothing. Nevertheless, at thy word, I will let down the net." Nevertheless, at thy word. Those words hold the whole heart of obedience. My beloved Simon did not pretend the night had gone well. He honestly admitted they had caught nothing. The water looked the same, the boat looked the same, the nets looked the same, and nothing in his circumstances had changed at all. The only thing that was different was my voice, and that was enough for him to obey. And what happened when he obeyed? They enclosed a great multitude of fishes, and their net broke, my child. I did not ask Simon to manufacture fish. I asked him to lower his net. His part was obedience. The overwhelming catch was mine to give. This is the pattern you have missed in your exhaustion, my beloved. You have been trying to fill the nets yourself. You have been trying to force the catch, control the outcome, and guarantee the result, when all I ever asked of you was to launch out and let the net down in obedience. The increase has always been my responsibility, not yours. Let me speak now to the weariness that has settled into your bones, my child, because I understand where it came from. So many of my children become exhausted because they have unknowingly picked up responsibilities that belong to me. They believe they must force every door open. They believe they must solve every problem by their own cleverness. They believe they must control every outcome or everything will fall apart. But I have never once asked you to carry my responsibilities, my beloved. I have only asked you to carry yours. The servants could carry water, only I could transform it. The fishermen could lower nets, only I could fill them. And this, my child, is the balance that will finally bring you peace. Doing your part does not mean becoming responsible for the miracle. It means becoming faithful in the obedience and then resting. If your shoulders ease even a little as you understand that the outcome was never yours to force, my beloved, do not let the moment pass. Go and type this in the comments. I lay down the burden that was never mine to carry. Speak it out over every situation you've been trying to control with your own trembling hands. Let me teach you something my word has always declared, my child, about who grows what. It is written, "I have planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase." Do you hear the freedom in that, my beloved? The one who plants does his part, and the one who waters does her part. But neither of them can make a single seed grow. Only I can give the increase. You can plant, you can water, and you can be faithful with the soil and the seed I have placed in front of you. But you were never meant to reach down into the ground and force life into a seed, because that is a work that belongs to me alone. So stop straining to make the seed grow, my child. Plant it in obedience, water it in faithfulness, and then leave the growing to me, for I have never once failed to give the increase in its right season. Let me tell you about a widow who learned this in the middle of her desperation, my child. She was drowning in debt, about to lose her sons, with nothing left in her house but a little oil. And my prophet did not tell her to go find money or force a solution. He told her to do something that seemed almost too simple. Go borrow empty vessels from your neighbors, not a few, and then begin to pour. That was her part, my beloved. Gather the empty jars and pour. And as she poured her little oil in obedience, it did not run out. It kept flowing and flowing, filling every empty vessel she had gathered until there was not one jar left to fill, and she had enough to pay every debt and live on the rest. My child, hear the pattern again. She gathered the jars and poured what little she had, but the multiplying of the oil was my work, not hers. So bring me your empty places tonight, my beloved. Bring me the little you have left, and do the small obedient thing of pouring it out in faith, and watch me be the one to make it more than enough. Your part is to pour, the multiplying is mine. And when your part feels not small, but heavy, my child, when obedience costs you something and you cannot see how it could possibly work out, remember my servant Abraham on the mountain. I asked him for the hardest obedience a father could ever be asked to give, and he did not understand it, and it broke his heart. Yet he climbed the mountain in trust. His part was to obey and to climb, even when he could not see the outcome and could not imagine how good could come from it. And there, at the very moment of his obedience, I provided what he could never have provided for himself. A ram was caught in the thicket, and the thing he dreaded was replaced by the provision he could not have arranged. And he named that place with a name that has echoed ever since. Jehovah Jireh, the Lord will provide. My beloved, hear it. His part was to obey, my part was to provide. He climbed in faith, and I met him with provision at the top of the very mountain he dreaded. There's a mountain of obedience in front of you right now that you cannot see the other side of. My child, climb it in trust anyway, and know that I am already waiting at the top with a provision you could never have arranged for yourself, for I am still the Lord who provides. Let me tell you why I so often ask my children to do a part at all, my beloved, when I could easily do the whole thing myself. At that wedding in Cana, I could have filled those jars with wine in an instant without ever involving a single servant. I certainly had the power, yet I chose to involve them. I asked them to carry the water. Why, my child? Not because I needed their help. I never need help. I involve them because I delight in growing the faith of the ones I love. Every bucket those servants carried reminded them that they were responding to me. Every trip to the well was a small act of trust. And when the water became wine, they knew they had been part of something only I could do. I invite you into what I am doing, my beloved, not because your effort completes my power, but because your participation deepens your trust. Participation teaches dependence. Participation teaches humility. And participation grows the very faith that will carry you through everything still ahead. Take one slow breath with me right now, my child. Just one. And as you breathe out, let go of a little of the striving you have carried for so long. If that breath goes even a little deeper than your breaths have gone all day, take it as a sign that your spirit is beginning to rest in me. Go and type this in the comments. Because you say so, Lord, I will obey and I will trust. Say it as agreement, my beloved, not as pretending, but as trust laid down in the open. My child, before I go any further, I want to turn for just a moment and speak not only to you, but through you. There is another weary soul out there tonight who has done everything they know how to do and is convinced they must have failed because nothing has changed yet. They have not heard a single word of the rest I'm speaking over you right now. This ministry exists, my beloved, because ordinary people who found peace in me chose to help carry that peace to the ones still striving in exhaustion. If you feel moved in your spirit to sow a seed into this work, so that this word can reach the one who is about to collapse under a burden that was never theirs, there is a link waiting in the description below. There is no pressure in this at all, my child, and no obligation of any kind. It is simply an open door for anyone who feels gently called to partner with what I am doing here. And when you sow into another soul's rest, my beloved, you are agreeing with me that no one should have to carry my responsibilities as though the miracle depended on their strength. Now, let me return to you, my child, and speak to the way you have measured your own obedience. You have looked at the small and ordinary things I asked of you and wondered if they even mattered. Filling stone jars with water was not glamorous work. Carrying bucket after bucket was ordinary labor. There was nothing dramatic about it. Nothing that announced a miracle was near, and yet every bucket mattered to me. Every trip to the well mattered. Every ordinary act of obedience mattered. because the miracle came only after the assignment was faithfully completed. My beloved, you keep looking for some bigger, more impressive instruction, while I keep asking you to be faithful in the simple thing right in front of you. Reading my word, praying sincerely, forgiving the one who wounded you, speaking truth, walking in integrity when no one is watching, and choosing honesty when a lie would be easier. These things may not feel dramatic to you, my child, but they are precious to me, and I accomplish extraordinary things through people who simply keep obeying me, one quiet step at a time. You have wanted a grand assignment, my beloved, some large and shining task that would finally feel worthy of the longing in your heart. But do not overlook the simple instruction I have already placed in front of you while you wait for a bigger one. The servants who were faithful with the water were the ones who got to witness the wine. The ones entrusted with the small thing are the ones I trust with the greater. So be faithful in the little, my child. Do the ordinary obedience in front of you today with all your heart, and let me be the one who decides how large a thing I will grow from it. Nothing you do in obedience is ever too small to matter to me, because I am not measuring the size of the task. I am watching the faithfulness of the one who does it, and notice the small detail my word preserved for you. My beloved, the servants filled the jars up to the brim. They did not stop halfway. They did not leave room because they assumed enough was enough. They completed the instruction exactly as they received it. Obedience so often reveals itself in faithfulness to the details, my child. Do not despise the smallness of what I have asked of you, and do not do it halfway. Fill your jars to the brim. Be faithful all the way through in the parts no one sees, because faithfulness is never measured by how impressive the task looks. It is measured by the heart that performs it. A person can do something very ordinary with extraordinary faith, and my child, I have always seen that. I see it in you. Go and type this in the comments, my beloved. My job is obedience, and the increase belongs to God. Let heaven hear you release the outcome you have been clutching, and take up only the part that was ever truly yours. And do not despise the smallness of what you have to offer, my beloved, for I have always done my greatest work with what looked like far too little. There was a great hungry crowd once, thousands of them, with evening coming on and no food to be found. And in all that multitude, only one small boy had brought anything at all. A humble lunch of a few loaves and a couple of small fish. It was almost nothing, my child. It could not have fed even his own family, let alone a crowd like that. But he brought his little to me anyway, and he placed it in my hands. And that was his whole part. He did not have to multiply it. He did not have to figure out how it could possibly be enough. He simply gave what he had, and I took that small and ordinary lunch, and I broke it, and I multiplied it until every last person was fed to the full. And there was more left over than what he had started with, my beloved. You keep looking at the littleness of what you have to give, your small strength, your small resources, your small faith, and you decide it is not worth offering. But I am not asking you to make it enough. I am only asking you to bring it. You bring the little, I do the multiplying. That has always been how it works between us. Go and type this in the comments, my child. I will bring my little to God, and I will trust Him to do the multiplying. Speak it over the small and ordinary thing in your hands that you thought was too little to matter. Let me speak to the honesty I saw in Simon that morning, my child, because there is a lesson in it your heart needs. When I told him to launch out into the deep, he did not pretend the long night had been a success. He looked at me and admitted the truth. We have toiled all night and have taken nothing. And then, in the same breath, he obeyed anyway. My beloved, this is what mature faith looks like. Faith does not require you to pretend. I already know the truth of your situation. I already know your disappointments. I already know how hard you have worked and how little it seems to have produced, and how tired you are. You do not have to hide any of that from me, my child. You can be completely honest about the empty nets and still choose to obey my voice. Faith is not the denial of your reality. Faith recognizes the facts, and then it listens to a greater authority than the facts. The empty nets were real. My word to Simon was also real, and he chose to respond to the greater of the two. I know how easily your own experience tries to become your loudest teacher. My beloved, those fishermen had years of experience. They knew that lake. They knew that when the night produced nothing, the day rarely produced more. Their experience told them to go home. But experience, my child, however valuable it is, was never meant to replace my voice. They had experience. I had authority. And when those two met, my authority proved greater than everything their past had taught them. Hear this, and let it comfort you, my beloved. I am never limited by what you have previously experienced. Your history of disappointment does not set the ceiling for what I can do. Just because it has not worked before does not mean it will not work now, because the deciding factor was never your track record. It was always my word. Let me give you a picture that will steady you when the pressure to fix everything rises again, my child. There was a king named Jehoshaphat who faced an army far too great for him, and in his fear he sought me. And this is the word I gave him: you shall not need to fight in this battle. Set yourselves, stand you still, and see the salvation of the Lord with you. My beloved, hear what their part was. Their part was to set themselves in position and to stand still. My part was the salvation. There are battles in your life right now that you've been trying to fight with your own strength, exhausting yourself swinging at an enemy I never asked you to defeat. Sometimes your part is not to fight harder, my child. Sometimes your part is to take your position, stand still in faith, and watch me do what only I can do. As I told my people at the edge of the sea, the Lord shall fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. Holding your peace is not laziness, my beloved. It is trust. It is the hardest and holiest kind of obedience. If a quiet peace begins to settle into your chest as you hear that you can stop fighting battles that were always mine, my child, mark this moment. Go and type this in the comments. I stop striving and I trust God's power to begin where my strength ends. Let heaven hear you lay down the fight you were never meant to win on your own. And do you know what Jehoshaphat did next, my beloved? Once he understood that the battle belonged to me, he did something that must have looked like foolishness to every soldier watching. He appointed singers to go out in front of the army, to march ahead of the fighting men, and simply praise me before a single sword had been raised, before the victory could be seen with any human eye. And it is written that when they began to sing and to praise, I set ambushes against their enemies, and the battle was won without my people having to fight it at all. My child, hear what this means for you. Sometimes the most powerful part you can play after you have done what I asked is to begin praising me before you see the outcome. Not praise because the victory has already come, but praise because you trust the one who promised it. Worship is not something you save for after the breakthrough, my beloved. Worship in the waiting is itself an act of obedience, and it is one of the surest signs that you have truly handed the battle to me. So lift your voice while you wait, my child. Thank me before the answer arrives. Praise me in the gap between your obedience and my miracle, and watch what my presence does in a heart that worships before it sees. Let me remind you of a city with walls too high to climb, my beloved. When my people came to Jericho, I did not ask them to build siege engines or batter down the gates by force. I asked them to march, simply to walk around the city in obedience day after day, doing something that must have looked foolish to everyone watching. And when they had faithfully done their part, the walls that no human strength could have moved fell down flat, because bringing down walls was my part, not theirs. My child, there is a wall in your life that has not moved, no matter how hard you have thrown yourself against it, and I am telling you tonight, stop battering it. Do the ordinary, faithful, sometimes unglamorous thing I have asked of you. Keep walking in obedience even when it looks like nothing is happening, and leave the wall to me. Walls are my specialty, my beloved. You were never built to knock them down. You were only ever asked to march. And there was a proud commander named Naaman, my beloved, a great man covered in a disease no physician could cure. When he came seeking healing, my prophet did not give him some grand and complicated ritual. He simply told him to go and wash in the ordinary waters of the Jordan River. Naaman was offended at first, my child, because the instruction seemed far too small and far too plain for a man of his importance. He wanted something dramatic, something that matched the size of his problem. But his healing was never going to come through the greatness of the act. It was going to come through the humility of his obedience. And when he finally humbled himself and went down and washed in that plain and unremarkable river, just as he had been told, his skin was made new and whole. My beloved, hear it once more. His part was to wash, my part was to heal. He could not cleanse himself, no matter how important he was, and you cannot heal what only I can heal, no matter how hard you try. So stop being offended by the smallness of what I have asked. Do the plain and humble thing, my child, and let me be the one who makes you whole. And let me show you one more, my child, at a tomb where hope had already died. When I came to raise Lazarus, I did not roll the stone away myself, though I easily could have. I said to the people standing there, "Take ye away the stone." That was their part, the ordinary, physical, doable thing. And then I did what no human hand could ever do. I called a dead man out of the grave. My beloved, do you understand the pattern now? They rolled the stone, I raised the dead. You keep trying to raise the dead things in your life by your own power, and it is crushing you, because resurrection was never your assignment. Your assignment is to roll away the stone, to do the obedient thing in front of you, and then to step back and watch me breathe life into what you had already given up for lost. Go and type this in the comments, my child. I did not miss anything. God is still working behind the scenes even in what looks dead. Speak it over the very situation you had quietly stopped believing for. Now let me speak to the peace I am offering you, my beloved, because it is one of the greatest gifts of the whole Christian life. Your responsibility is obedience. My responsibility is what only I can accomplish, and these two must never be exchanged. Whenever you try to carry my responsibility, you become overwhelmed and anxious and worn thin because you were never built to do my job. And whenever you neglect your own responsibility, you become passive and careless. But when you learn the difference, my child, everything changes. You learn to say, "Lord, I will faithfully do what you have asked of me, and then I will leave the rest in your hands." That is not passivity, my beloved. That is deep and active trust. The servants worked, the fishermen worked, and their obedience involved real action, yet their action never replaced my power. Both worked together in a beautiful harmony, and that is the harmony I'm calling you into tonight. And here is the truth that will finally take the pressure off your chest, my child. The breakthrough you are waiting for will never come by the sheer force of your effort, and it was never meant to. Hear my word. Not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord of hosts. Not by might, my beloved, not by power, not by how hard you push, or how much you strain, or how tightly you grip. The mountains in your life do not move because you finally worked hard enough to move them. They move by my Spirit, in my time, in answer to your trust and your obedience. So you can stop trying to muscle your way into your breakthrough, my child. You can stop believing that if you were just stronger or smarter or more relentless, you could force the thing to happen. It was never going to happen by your might. And that is not bad news. That is the best news your tired heart could hear, because it means the outcome does not rest on the limits of your strength. It rests on the limitlessness of my spirit. Think of my servant Moses, my child, standing at the edge of the sea with an army thundering behind him and an ocean stretched impossibly in front of him. There was no human way forward. And what did I ask of him in that impossible moment? I did not ask him to part the waters. No man could ever part a sea. I simply told him to lift up his rod and stretch out his hand over the water. That was his part. My beloved, one small motion of obedient trust, lifting a shepherd's staff over an ocean that no staff could ever move. And when he did the small thing I asked, I sent a strong wind through the night, and I parted the sea before them, and my people walked through on dry ground in the middle of what had been certain death. My child, hear the pattern one final time and let it settle deep into you. Moses lifted the rod, I parted the sea. He did the tiny, obedient, almost laughable thing. I did the impossible thing. And there is a sea in front of you right now that you've been staring at in despair, certain there is no way through. You do not have to part it, my beloved. You could not if you tried. You only have to lift what is in your hand in obedience, and then watch me open a way where there was no way. Perhaps you are wondering, my child, how you are even to know which is your part and which is mine, since you have carried both for so long that the line between them has blurred. So let me give you a simple way to tell them apart. Your part will almost always be something you can actually do. It will be an act of obedience within your reach, however humble it may seem. Filling the jar, lowering the net, taking the position, rolling the stone, climbing the mountain, lifting the rod. If it is truly your part, you will have the ability to do it, even when you do not have the strength to enjoy it. But my part will always be the thing that is impossible for you, the thing no amount of effort on your side could ever accomplish. The wine, the catch, the healing, the resurrection, the parted sea. My beloved, here is the mercy in that. If you find yourself straining to accomplish something that only I can do, exhausting yourself trying to force an outcome, that is your sign that you have wandered across the line and picked up my part again. And the moment you notice it, you can simply hand it back to me. Do what is yours to do, my child, the possible and obedient thing, and release to me what was always mine, the impossible thing that only heaven can perform. Peace lives right there on your side of that line, and I am inviting you to come and live there, too. I know the enemy of your rest will try to visit you again after tonight, my child. So let me prepare you before he does. When this peace begins to fade, as feelings always do, he will come back and whisper that you must not have done enough, that you need to strive harder, and that if you just carried a little more, the breakthrough would finally come. He will try to load my responsibilities back onto your shoulders and call it faithfulness. Do not believe him, my beloved. When that anxious pressure returns, come back to the truth. My part is obedience. God's part is the increase. I have filled my jars, I have lowered my net. The miracle belongs to him. Speak it until the striving loses its grip, because my word about the boundary between your work and mine will still be standing long after the pressure has come and gone. And let me settle one fear that has haunted you in the quiet, my beloved, the fear that maybe all your obedience has been wasted because you cannot see any fruit from it yet. You look back over the seasons of faithfulness, the prayers with no visible answer, the right choices that seemed to change nothing, the times you obeyed and it cost you and nothing came of it. And the enemy whispers that it was all for nothing. My child, hear me. Not one act of your obedience has been wasted. Not one. The servants carrying water did not see the wine while they were carrying it. The fishermen lowering the net did not see the fish while they were lowering it. To their own eyes in the moment, they were doing something that appeared to accomplish nothing at all. But every trip to the well was being counted. Every lowering of the empty net was being seen. And so it has been with you, my beloved. Every quiet, unseen, seemingly fruitless act of obedience has been gathered up and remembered by me, and none of it will return void. What looks like wasted labor to your eyes is stored up harvest in mine. You have not been failing all this time, my child. You have been filling the jars, and the wine is coming. And let me lift your eyes to something my word promises about the work I have begun in you, my beloved. It is written, being confident of this very thing, that he which hath begun a good work in you will perform it until the day of Jesus Christ. Hear it, my child. I am the one who began the good work in you, and I am the one who will finish it. Your part is not to complete what I started by the sweat of your own striving. Your part is to keep walking in obedience while I bring to completion what only I can complete. And it is written, except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. You have labored so hard, my beloved, and I honor your labor. But let me be the one building the house. Do your part, and let me be the builder, and your labor will never again be in vain. So let me say to you now the thing I have been leading toward this whole time. My child, you can rest. Not because the work does not matter, but because you have done the part that was yours, and the rest belongs to me. You filled the jars, you lowered the net, you rolled away the stone, you marched around the wall, you did your part faithfully, even when it felt ordinary, even when it felt like nothing was happening. And now, my beloved, you get to do the most trusting thing a soul can do. You get to step back, unclench your hands, and watch me do what only I can do. The wine is my part, the catch is my part, the increase is my part, the wall is my part, the resurrection is my part. Your striving is over, your trusting has begun. Now let me speak to the hardest part of all, my child, the part no one warns you about. It is the gap, the space between the moment you finish your part and the moment I reveal mine. The servants had filled the jars, but for a moment the water was still only water. The fishermen had lowered the net, but for a breath there were still no fish. There is almost always a waiting between your obedience and my miracle, my beloved, and that waiting is where your faith is tested the most. In that gap, the temptation will rise to take the burden back onto your own shoulders, to decide that nothing is happening and to pick the net back up and start striving all over again. But I am asking you to hold steady in the gap, my child. Do not undo your obedience with your anxiety. Do not pull the seed back out of the ground to check whether it is growing. The waiting is not a sign that I have forgotten. The waiting is simply the space in which I am working out of sight on the part that was always mine to do. Trust me in the gap, my beloved. That is where faith becomes real. If you can feel your grip beginning to loosen on something you have been anxiously holding, my child, do not let the moment pass. Go and type this in the comments. I will trust God in the gap between my obedience and His answer. Speak it over the thing you have been waiting on, the promise that has not yet come to pass. Take one more slow breath with me, my child, and let your whole body settle into this. You are not your own source. You are not your own provider. You are not the one holding everything together by the strength of your will. I am. So you are free to obey and then to rest. Now, go and type this final declaration in the comments, my beloved. I did my part, and now I watch God do His. Before you go, my child, let me leave one last word over the days ahead of you this week. When the old pressure rises to fix everything and force every outcome, gently remember the boundary I taught you tonight. Ask yourself, is this my part, or am I trying to carry God's part again? Do the thing that is truly yours faithfully and to the brim, and then release the rest into my hands the way you are releasing it now. I will be as near to you in the busy daylight as I am in this quiet hour. And I am not finished with you, my beloved, not even close. The work I began in you, I will most certainly complete, and you will see me do things that no amount of your own striving could ever have accomplished. If this word has met you right where you are tonight, my child, and you feel that quiet nudge in your spirit to help carry it to the next weary soul still striving in the dark, then I want to leave that door gently open for you. This message reached you tonight because someone who found their rest in me chose to sow a seed so that it could travel all the way here to you. If you feel moved to do the same for the one who comes after you, my beloved, there is a link waiting in the description. Whatever you choose to sow becomes seed for another soul's peace tomorrow, for the tired heart who has not yet heard that they were never meant to carry what only God can carry. There is no pressure in it at all, my child, and nothing owed by anyone. It is only an invitation to help carry the rest forward to the next one still striving alone. Now let us pray together, my beloved, before you go. Father, thank you for this moment. Thank you for my friend who is still here, still faithful, still trusting you, even when they cannot yet see the results of their obedience. Thank you that you never asked them to carry what belongs to you. I speak rest over their striving heart right now. I speak peace over their anxious mind. I speak confidence over their weary faith. They have filled their jars, they have lowered their nets, they have done the part that was theirs. And now, Father, let them watch you do the part that is yours. Let them feel your presence in a way they can almost touch. Let them know deep in their spirit that not one act of their quiet obedience has been wasted, and that you are faithful to complete what only you can complete. Strengthen the discouraged, encourage the weary, and give your beloved child the deep rest of a soul that finally knows the difference between their work and yours, in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen. And so I bless you now as you go, my child, the way a father blesses a child he loves at the close of the day. I bless your weary hands with rest that they would finally unclench from everything they have been gripping so tightly. I bless your anxious mind with peace that the endless striving would grow quiet at last. I bless your faithful heart with confidence that you would trust me to complete what only I can complete. I bless the gap you are standing in, the space between your obedience and my answer, that you would not fill it with fear, but with worship. And I bless the miracle that is already on its way to you, my beloved. The increase you cannot see yet, the wine, the catch, the open sea, the wall about to fall, quietly forming in the unseen even now, because you did your part and I never failed to do mine. Rest now, my beloved child. You did your part and you did it faithfully, all the way to the brim. You have carried the water, you have lowered the net, you have lifted your rod over the sea. There is nothing left for you to force and nothing left for you to strive for tonight. So unclench your hands, my child, and let them lie open and empty and at peace, and watch your Father do the very thing that only your Father can do. Go in peace, my beloved. The striving is over, the trusting has begun, and I am already at work on the part that was always only mine. Amen.